Welcome to Miss Erikas Storytime. Hi. She was the first woman and African-American woman to receive a master's degree from the University of Hawaii and the first female and African-American professor. Alice Augusta Ball was born on July 24, 1892 in Seattle to James and Laura Louise Ball. She was the third of 4 children. James was a lawyer, newspaper editor, and photographer of the Colored Citizen, and Laura was also a photographer. James Ball Sr. was one of the first African-American photographers to print photographs on metal plates. On Alice's birth certificate, both her parents were listed as white to make her life easier in the future. The family moved to Honolulu with the hope the weather would help James Sr., but he died shortly after arriving. They returned to Seattle a few years later, and Alice graduated out of high school. She studied chemistry at University of Washington, earning a bachelor's degree in pharmaceutical chemistry in 1912, and a second degree in pharmacy. She co-published a 10-page article for the Journal of the American Chemical Society in 1914, a very big accomplishment for a woman, and more so for a Black woman. After she graduated, she received several scholarships and studied her master's at the College of Hawaii and studied the chemical makeup of a plant. In 1866 until 1969, more than 8,000 patients suffering from leprosy were exiled to the Hawaiian island Molokai to die. She was approached by Harry Holman at Kalihi Hospital in Hawaii, who needed an assistant for research on chaumugra oil, which was the best treatment for leprosy. There were issues with the application of the oil. It was too sticky for topical, too thick to be injected, and too bitter to taste. At 23, she developed a way to make it injectable and water-soluble. She coined it the Ball method. She died before she could publish her findings. After she died, her study advisor and fellow chemist, Arthur L. Dean, published her work under his name, calling it the Dean method. In 1922, Harry Holman insists on correcting the error and publishes a paper giving her full credit and referred to it as the Ball method. When asked to compare the two methods, Dean mentions he improved on it, and Holman states emphatically he sees no improvement. 2 professors find her research and get her recognized. It comes 6 years after her death on December 31st, 1916, at 24. She was ill and may have been exposed to chlorine poisoning while giving a demonstration on how to use a gas mask properly. Her cause of death is unknown, but on her death certificate it says tuberculosis. On February 28, 2022, Hawaii governor declared February 28 as Alice Augusta Ball Day in a special ceremony at the University of Hawaii. And I'll just leave that there. Hi. Bessie Coleman is the first African American and first Native American to hold a pilot and international pilot's license. She was born on January 26, 1892 in Atlanta, Texas to George and Susan Coleman. George was Black and had Cherokee grandparents. Bessie was the 10th of 13 children, and when she turned 2, the family moved to Waxahachie, Texas, where they worked as sharecroppers. Bessie picked cotton and also attended a small segregated school where she walked 4 miles a day and loved to read and excelled in math. Her father left in search of more opportunities, and the family remained to pick cotton. At 18, she used her savings and enrolled in Lansing University and completed 1 year before the money ran out. She moved to Chicago and lived with her brothers. She became very interested in flying, but there were no educational opportunities in that field for African American or Native Americans. She worked as a manicurist and restaurant manager to raise money for flight school. Robert Abbott, publisher of the Chicago Defender, encouraged her to study abroad. Abbott printed her story, and she received sponsorship for flight school. She learned French, and on November 20th, 1920, she was on her way to France. 7 months later, Bessie became the first Black woman, Native American Black woman, to receive her pilot's license. She also became the first American of any race or gender to receive an international aviation license from the FAI, the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale. She took extra courses with an ace pilot before returning to the United States. Upon her return, she realized she would need to do more if she wanted to make a living. She would have to become a stunt flyer. Since no one could teach her in the United States, she went back to France for advanced training. She later traveled to the Netherlands and consulted with Anthony Fokker, the world's distinguished aircraft designer, and then to his plant in Germany. She received additional training from his company's chief pilots. She returned to the United States and quickly became known as the Queen Bess of the air shows for the next 5 years. She received adulation and respect from whites and blacks. Her dream was to start a school for African American flyers. In 1922, she was about to do an air show when the engine stalled and the plane crashed. She survived with a broken leg, fractured ribs, and was grounded for 4 months. She promoted aviation and spoke to audiences about it and race, while raising money to buy another plane. She was offered a role in a film in which she thought would enable her to buy the plane and get future publicity. On the set, she was to appear in ripped clothing, carrying a backpack, and she literally walked off the set. She would never compromise herself or her race. She finally raised enough money to purchase a plane. Her mechanic and publicity agent flew the plane from Dallas, but was forced to land 3 times because of poor maintenance. Nobody wanted her to fly the plane, but she refused to listen, as she wanted to practice a parachute jump for the next day. She unharnessed herself to look at the side of the plane and didn't rehook herself. 10 minutes in, the plane went into a dive and then a spin. She was thrown from the plane at 2,000 feet, and Wills, her mechanic, crashed on impact. Coleman was 34. 10,000 mourners attended the ceremony led by Ida B. Wells. Even though the wreckage was engulfed in flames, they discovered a wrench had jammed the controls. And I'll leave that right there. Thank you for watching. And please like, follow, and subscribe from wherever you're listening from. See you next time.